Shalom friends, welcome to part 2 of the series, The Importance of Blessing the Next Generation. So in part 1, I read specific scriptures, Genesis 48 and 1 Kings 2, for us to understand the context of blessing the next generation. Now, there are certain verses that stood out to me from each chapter. For example, Genesis 48 verse 9, and I'm reading from the Complete Jewish Bible. Hear what it says. Genesis 48 verse 9. Yaakov replied, I want you to bring them here to me so that I can bless them. This is of great importance. Why? Because the father, or the grandfather rather, which is Yaakov, he knew the destiny of his grandchildren. And as customary, he knew that, guess what, it is important to bless the next generation because one, the next generation will carry on the legacy of the family, and knowing that they are a family that studies Torah, then the next generation will do likewise. Also, in the same chapter, Genesis 48 verse 15, Yaakov blessed Yosef, his son Joseph, and hear what he says to him. The God in whose presence my fathers Avram and Yitzhak lived, the God who has been my own shepherd all my life long to this day, the angel who has rescued me from all harm, bless these boys. So we see where Yaakov gives credit to God, and he talks about the patriarchs, Avram, Yitzhak, right? And he declares that God is his shepherd, and so he blesses his children, he blesses his grandchildren because he wants them to follow in his footsteps. And the scripture continues, may they remember who I am. So he has created a legacy for these children to continue. So he's saying, may they remember who I am. May they remember the positive traits that I possess. May they remember that, guess what? Serving God is of great priority, is of utmost importance. And likewise, my fathers, Avram and Yitzhak. So he prays that they remember the patriarchs as well, because they too have created a legacy which needed to continue. And he said who they were, so may they remember the fathers, Avram and Yitzhak, who they were and what they stood for. So they were men of honor, men of dignity, men of valor, right? And he wanted his grandsons to be just like that. Now, 1 Kings 2 verse 3, hear what it says. And this is David blessing his son Shlomo, or King Solomon. Observe the charge of Adonai your God to go in his ways and keep his regulations, his mitzvot, rulings and instructions, in accordance with what is written in the Torah of Moshe, so that you will succeed in all you do and wherever you go. So David is encouraging his son, taking on the responsibility of a king to do what? Always remember Torah. Always put God first. Remember that Torah should be, your life, that you should always take into consideration what the Torah of Moshe is all about. Guess what? Because if you do not do this, you will fail as a king. So one of the reasons why the fathers or the grandfathers would bless their children, would bless the next generation, because one, they understand their responsibility as head of the house, and they understand that without God, there is no success. And because they have led a life which was Torah based, representing the king, represented God himself, they too wanted their children to stay on the path of righteousness. So we see, well, one of the reasons why blessing the next generation is important. They wanted the next generation to be successful and to impact nations and to always have God as a center of their lives. Now, I want to point out or talk about the Hebrew word for bless, which is BARAK, right? And this word comes from a root word which speaks to the knee. So BARAK is a Hebrew word for bless, and it means to kneel, presenting a gift to someone, to show respect, to bring a gift to another person or to another while kneeling out of respect. BARAK also means to give something of value to someone. It means to salute, surely, so something that is sure, to congratulate, to boast, a congratulation for prosperity, or to invoke prosperity. So what David Melech or King David did, and what Yaakov did to his sons and to his grandsons, meant that he was presenting them something of value. So these fathers knew the destiny or knew the potential that their sons had, right? And what they did was invoke that prosperity on their children. They declared prosperity over their children, and they gave them gifts. So the words that they spoke to them were gifts of value, because they told them, guess what? Remember the patriarchs. Remember who came before you. Remember what they stood for. Remember the values, that they cherished. Remember, you can't live without Torah. You can't live without God. Remember all these things. So the blessings that were pronounced over the children's lives were something of value, because as they grow, they remember what dad said. They remember what granddad said, and it continued with them, and they too blessed their children. Now, fathers, it is your responsibility to bless your child or your children. It is your responsibility to know, to envision the future, the potential of your child. Avram did it. Avram blessed his children. Yitzhak blessed his children. Yaakov blessed his children. And you too need to bless your child or children as well. Until then, see you next time. Shalom.